Go for it.
Yeah, I think I'm good to
So it's time to move on to our next topic. We're going to the chapters in the book, as you can probably tell, so make sure to read the book, corresponding chapters or sections of the chapter to get the knowledge from different
You got the
sources.
mic on?
I have the mic on, thanks for asking. At least I think I do, I guess we'll find out. Sometimes with this machine is very hard to tell. All right, so the next topic, which is also in chapter 3, is objects. And we are a little bit familiar with objects now because our very first example, we actually used the date object so we can display the current time as part of the greeting to the user, if you recall. So the date object is an object that is part of the JavaScript available objects. And there are some other ones as well. I think I told you about window object, document object, but we can also make our own objects. And so that's what I'm going to show you today. There will be a lot of typing probably because there is more than one way to do the same thing. So we want to learn 3 different ways of creating objects. So objects are entities that group together variables and functions, or another way to think about it is what something can do and what some characteristics. So in the example with the motel, if you recall, the variables, now we can call them variables for example, number of rooms. What else do we say? The name of the motel, and then we can check availability, which is a function or a method. And so if we talk about objects, you might hear the variables called properties and the functions called methods, but they're just semantics, it's just different words for those variables and functions that belong to the objects. All right, so just like I said. And then the other, this is actually a deep concept, you're going to hear it many times again when you're taking other programming classes, is the idea of key value pair. So we have a name and the corresponding value, right? So we're going to have the name of the hotel and then the value. And so this is the idea of key value pair. It comes up over and over when we learn about JSON, which is a very popular format for storing of data. We're going to come back to key value pair because the reason we do this is because we need to know what the value is pertaining to, so they just logically go together. All right, so here is a hotel example of an object. This is the first type of object creation, which is what we call a literal object. And I'm going to show you an example in a moment here, but as you can see, to create an object, we're going to give it a var, again, so it's a variable. We're going to give it a name. And then we're going to assign the key value pairs of the property and the corresponding value, as well as the availability. Also, you can see here that you can have an array that is part of the object.
That looks like a class, right?
Yeah, but in Java, in JavaScript, we don't have classes, so we talk about objects. So the names and the corresponding values, they make up the properties.
Why would you have above 25, but that be something that varied depending on what?
So you can, okay, so just keep in mind these are contrived examples for learning purposes, but you could use, I guess you might want to make this into a method, but then you can store the information still in a property. Right? So 25 is a property, but maybe you have a method to do the calculation. Subtract 1 every time a room is rented, for example.
And then you would link the method right there. And
Yeah, you could do something like that, exactly. Oh, let's see. So let me show you what something else is probably new. Do you see this keyword here?
Yes.
All right. So does anyone know what this keyword means?
Is it referring to the function that they're within?
It's referring to the object that we
The
take.
object.
Right. So when you're referring to something inside the same object, we're going to get used to calling it this dot. And so that means that the rooms belongs to the hotel. And you're going to see it many times.
So it's a key within this.
Right, so it's within the scope of this current object because you might have, an object within an object, right? And then how do you know which object you're in? Well, if you say this dot, then it means in this case I'm within my hotel object. All right? And then how do we access objects? So for example, we can call, once we have the object, the same way as we can say document.write, when we're accessing a method to the document object, I can say hotel.name, and I can access a property of the hotel or a method, right? So the dot notation is showing up again here. This is the second, so in JavaScript there is more than one way to do the same thing. There's just an alternative syntax to the previous one. I prefer this one, so I'll just skip over this alternative syntax. And then once you have an object, you can also date it with the properties, as for example here you can say hotel.name and then assign it a new name. Alright, so let me show you the built-in objects that are available to us as we work with JavaScript, and then I have some examples I put together that we're going to handle. So we have the browser, the web browser is an object, for example. The browser object has the following, some of the properties that it includes: the inner height, the screen, X and Y coordinates. It also has methods such as print, right? So in other words, what you can see here is that the same principles apply whether we create our own objects or whether we use the ones that are built into the browser. Then there is the document object model. The page is always in the web browser. And so the document object contains, now you can connect, we've been using document write, so that's where it comes from. There is a document object, and the document object has a method called write. Okay? And it also has get element by ID, right? We've been using this as well. So now we know we're actually referring to methods inside this built-in object. And also it has properties. Can you tell me, if you had to identify if something is an object, is a method versus a property, can you see how you could quickly spot the difference, Marcus? The parents, right? The methods are going to have parents, the properties don't. And in the method, sometimes you need to pass in arguments. Right?
Another thing is, it seemed like you have take care of verbs as opposed to.
That's right. Thank you. So usually, it should be always, the method name should be a verb, whereas the property name should be a noun. Like title is a noun, write is a verb, exactly. And then there's the JavaScript global objects, so they're available anywhere within JavaScript, and you can use them to work with them. So such as the string, so we're actually going to look at more detail at those. The string object has a length property, and also you can convert the case with a to upper or to lowercase method. So if you have a string, use an enter, and then if you say to uppercase, it will convert. And I think we did this as well. You might not remember, but we did an example like that. So these are properties and methods of the string class and object, not class. All right. So let's go ahead and hand call. Actually, I have 3 examples for us, and they're going to do the same thing, but the 3 different ways for creating objects. And the third way, and if we run out of time, I guess I'll switch the sequence, is what your homework is going to be about. Your homework this week is going to be for you to pick an object, and then you're going to create, code it in JavaScript with what we call constructor template notation, and I'll show you what this means. So you can start maybe just for a moment here. What kind of object might you be interested in creating? So something that you might be interested in?
A card.
A card, definitely, very common and a very good one. So you can have a car object, and you're going to think what are the properties of my car, what methods can I have, and don't worry about what the methods do. So obviously you can't do much, but just to create a structure of the object essentially, and then create what we call a couple instances. In other words, a car is an object, and then you're going to create, let's say, one Nissan and one Tesla, or whatever you like. So a specific instance of the object. What other object might you consider creating for your homework? I'm sorry? A pet, definitely. Okay, yeah, all right. So if you have a cat, and then if I have a cat, the cat can have what kind of properties?
Long hair, short hair, hair length, color.
Sure, the name, the age, absolutely. It can eat and meow and sleep, right? So these would be the methods. And then you can create instances. So in my instance, I will get 3 instances of my cats. So, let's do maybe one more example. What other object might be interesting to you?
Building.
A building? Absolutely, you can do a building. Yeah, just don't do a hotel because we already have that. So you can't do exactly the example we're doing in class. It has to be a little different. And so if you have a building, how do you make it that it's not exactly as a hotel?
Well, maybe as properties, I would just choose something else, like maybe number of apartments.
Sure. Yeah. Maybe
If
it's
it has parking.
okay. Absolutely. And then you can check for vacancy maybe. And then maybe you have to start thinking that you have like 3 properties. So then you're going to create 3 different instances. Sunset apartments and whatever else. Okay. So do you have, you don't know how to do it yet, but are you clear at least on how you're going to think about your homework? All right. Okay. The example I have for us is actually to create a book object. So please start your preferred editor. I'm still going. Yes. Is it not live? According to, I don't know what to do. It says it's live. Maybe it just dropped. Hopefully it will pick up again. I don't want to stop it because we just stopped altogether. So hopefully it will come back. All right. So just so you know, some of you might actually know, but every quarter, Mike Sinkula and I have problems with recordings not working. So we've tried to fix it, and it's really the machines. So we're struggling with this as well. Okay, so go ahead and let's create the HTML for our JavaScript. So let's start a new temp folder here. Actually, don't use uppercase. Lowercase. Set your folder to this folder. All right, and then I'm going to create a new file. Save as book-object.html. Okay, head, title, create an object, body. All right, so this is going to be the high point library and book inventory. And I'm going to have a paragraph with the ID of title. Paragraph with the ID of author. and a paragraph which is going to copies available for checkout, column, space. And then I'm going to add a span element in here with the ID of available copies. And I am planning to get some JavaScript to output here later. So this is a way, if you wonder, maybe if you wanted to not replace all the text in an element, but actually to add to it, then you can create an element and then add a span, which is an inline, and then only put the JavaScript inside the span, rather than the entire paragraph. Does this make sense? All right. And then we want to create, let's see here. There's a lot of JavaScript, so I'll put it in a separate file. So source is going to equal, we haven't created it yet, but it's going to be bookobject.js. And now we can work on the JavaScript part of this exercise. I'll let you catch up. Next, let's see, I'll close my tags. Let's go ahead and create a new file. The next file is going to be called bookobject.js, right? So if you didn't finish the HTML, are you almost, it looks like you're pretty much caught up now. Bella, did the recording start again?
Okay, yeah.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to start a new file, save as bookobject.js. And so I'm going to first show you how to create an object with literal syntax. So it's going to be variable book. So we're creating a book object is equal to, and then again the scope of the object is going to be, actually this is where we add the semicolon. This is the scope of the object. And then in here we're going to add our properties and methods. So for this book, I have selected just some basic properties. So title. So this is the key. And then column, the value is going to be mystery on the boot train. Or you can just put something quicker if you like. And then you separate the properties with comma. So then comma, author, the name of the author is Agatha Christie. And then I'm going to have checked out. And this is going to be the number 10. And available copies is going to be 15. And then I'm going to add a function. So after the comma there. So to add a function inside the literal, with the literal syntax into an object, we're going to say check available copies, colon, and then function. And my function is going to return. So I want to see what available copies there are. So I'm going to return this dot available copies. And see also that now, because you're saying this dot, the available copies from our properties just they become available here. So you can just select it instead of even typing it. So it's going to be available copies minus this dot checked out. And then this function is going to tell whoever is using it that currently there are 5 available copies because there are 15 total and then 10 are checked out. Right. So this is the definition of our object. We have, or the creation of it. We have created the object here, we coded it. And it has maybe to add some comments. What are these things called here? The first 4 properties. And then what is this? This is the method.
Tell me a million times probably. Say function or method.
Yeah, I know. A method is a function that belongs to an object. It's a function, it's just a special function because it belongs to an object. It's not something. All right. So do you have any questions so far? All right. Well, make sure to close your curly braces, and with brackets is nice. You can click on one of the braces and then see the corresponding one. All right. And so now what we're going to do is we want to update the HTML with the information about this object. So our next task here is get out of the object curly braces and then add a comment, update the HTML elements. And now you probably know what you need to do next. So we're going to get the nodes for the title, author, and available copies that we created, and then write there our properties from the JavaScript. So the first one is going to be variable EL title is equal to document dot get element by ID. And we have the paragraph here with the idea of title, so I'm selecting this. And then we can say EL title dot text content. So text content is one of the properties you can use to display content in the HTML. And it's going to equal to book dot title. Right? And maybe at this point I don't know if any of you, I will be wondering why are we even doing all this, right? Is anyone wondering why are we even doing all this instead of just doing it differently? The reason why is because we're going to learn how we can actually create multiple instances of the same object. So now with the same template of a book, you can have, hundreds of books in the library. and they all follow this format. And they're different instances for the same blueprint, if you will. Okay, and then we also want to do the same with the author and the available copies. So just go ahead and copy those lines and modify them, or just saving a little time. I'm copying lines 17 and 18. And then next is going to be the author. So EL author. I need to make some changes here. Remember, we can't use the same variables for different nodes. And then my element by ID will be for the author. And then EL author, text content, book.author. And then copy one more time. And then lastly, we're going to display the number of available copies. So make changes here. EL copies. So this is going to have an idea of available copies. And EL copies text content is equal to book dot. And now I'm going to call the check available copies method. And because it's a method, I'm going to use the parens, right? And it's going to do the calculation for me. So let's try this out, see if it's working. And then I know some of you, most of you are probably still working, but let me just test my own code real quick to make sure. All right, so it looks like it's working fine. It's displaying the title, the author, and how many copies are available. And now if I change this here to different numbers, so this is 10, if this was 25 or 45, I guess, then I would expect the correct number of available copies to be calculated, and they sure are, right? And so this is one way you could use this object. I'll let you finish, make sure everyone has this working.
No, please go down.
Sure, but, okay, so if it's not working, make sure to run the console to check for errors.
I think it's really good with the text, the L title dot text content.
L title dot text content? Sure. So for us to be able to print to the HTML page, we have to take two steps. The first step is to get a hold of the node where we want to display the content. And we do this by the ID. And then after we have a hold of it, we still have to print, type, add text to it. So to add text to it, we have to call the text content property on that same node. So it's a two-step process. And again, that's why when we get to jQuery, you're going to see what people do on jQuery, because this is pretty tedious, right?
Yeah, so the first part of the element, that's just like the letting the script know we're searching for this title, like space.
That's right. It's letting you know where you want to put it, and then the second line is going to actually put it there. So two-step process. Who was raising their hand, John?
Would you give some other examples of properties besides the text content? What are some other properties that might, that's denoting text, just as a general?
Well, if you want to actually write to the browser, so the other one you could use would be inner HTML. The options are either text content or inner HTML. So these are the two options, and that should work the same. So what's your name, Tom? What is your name? Mr. What was the question? Thomas. All right. So as you can see here, I changed it to the HTML and it's still printing the same. Now there are some differences between the two, yes, but I won't talk about it right now. So now just know that you have these two options, text content or inner HTML. If we wanted to add some kind of formatting to the text, we would have to use inner HTML because it allows you to put tags and style your output. And you could also do document write, but that's just mostly for purposes of just learning. It's not really used widely. Feel free to come up and move it. All right, whose is not working and maybe we can take a look? If yours is working, help your neighbor so we can move along. Okay. All right. Do you have any errors in the console? Okay, could you go back to the browser and then check for Control-Shift-I? So you have an error there. Okay, so EL copies is not. And it tells you that it's on line, it's like 26 or 24. So let's go and look at the error.
Sorry, guys.
So go to your HTML to make sure that you spell the name of that object correctly. So it's available copy. So the name is so it's saying there is no node with the name copies.
Gotcha, thank you.
Who else was there in the hand? In this case, okay, actually, maybe it is. So you would pass it to be, this is that place to include in the sample question. So you find them. Okay, so the first thing you can check now is make sure that the name of the ID is correct. So your title and the title. Was it correct? You're missing these two paragraphs. Are you guys clear? Is it working? Okay. So what are correct? Can you, let me take a look. Is your file in the JS folder or in the SAM folder?
It's in the JS folder.
You sure about that?
I'm sure about Bam. JS folder. JS.
Okay, you're good there. Okay. So we'll check it. So, think. So your script has to go inside the document. So hopefully this.
Because you could choose to display some text. You're right where I'm at.
She was everything they had, anyone?
So, double copies.
Otherwise you have to do no error messages.
No.
Okay. So that's,
Let me see, that part's called work.
so that's. So see, look at it. Why is it the same problem? So it's a function.
Yeah. And even showed us. This should be here.
Yeah.
I was surprised when the functions. Yeah, I thought I should have thought. Oh, this is the function.
Yeah, I did.
But you know, I can tell you. That's all Chris is called. Then you take this compliment to drag them up to the pace. Yeah, I had it. Yeah, but you know, I have a 40-inch TV that I have.
Yeah, I got my desk monitor and I just. That's like. Oh, there's my. So for yourself. I know right when you got it.
Oh, yeah, I don't just get my money.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's yeah, you can choose whether you want it to mirror it or if you want to set it up.
Oh, you have to touch the screen and set one if you want to move it.
Yeah, yeah.
I've watched the video down here, or much more.
That's what I do. So like,
The video right here. Give me a footage, usually 20 oh, that's look like TV. So I just let me know the other thing, like footage and stuff, because I can wall it up usually.
yeah, I just got them on there this size.
I'm better view here, but okay, so I use my own, which is
It's working.
It probably is.
It's not even showing, it's not doing anything, like, it's not seeing the JavaScript at all. Or they have in the same folder, so I don't know. I didn't put them on server, no, I was just trying to do it.
Oh, the live.
I don't know, I prefer not to use other.
My problem was that I had it available and we just had copies on. So we go back to the JavaScript. And then we just had copies.
Oh, you know, and that's it right there, homie.
Something else.
Does it?
I don't
It's not even noticing that there's JavaScript there. Maybe it needs to be on a server.
So, let's take another 10-minute break, and then when we come back, I'm going to show you the constructor template notation. This will be our last example, and then we'll be done with it. Although, yeah, so we do have 20 more minutes after this, right? So take your break quickly, so we can get this in.
I don't know why mine's not working.
Be back on time, please.
It's not even picking up the JavaScript at all.
It's not doing what?
It's not even picking up JavaScript at all.
Are you sure?
When I try to run it.
Is the JavaScript in the right folder?
They're both in the same folder.
You sure of that?
There we are. There's the HTML. This example is Web 150.
I mean, I believe you, but just something to double check. Okay.
Okay, and then
Right.
last
Okay.
example is Web 150.
It's not picking up. Is the name correct? Hook object? That's what you call it? Hook
Object, hook
No,
object,
yeah, I think so. Yeah,
hook
I
object.
think so. Yeah.
Yeah. And it doesn't even pick it up at all.
So go ahead and try the couple of tools, the HTML validator. I'm just getting tired, so it's hard for me to see the errors anymore, but copy all this, put it in HTML validator to make sure we don't have any errors there.
Okay.
Let's start with that.
Okay.
And if not, we'll do the same with JavaScript. No, it's not. Okay, so it's not there.
And there's one for JavaScript.
I guess we can do the same with the JavaScript. If you copy your JavaScript. You sure it's spelled correctly? The name of the
Hook object. Object and then hook
okay.
object.
All right. So let's copy the JavaScript and see if we can get something. And go to JS lint. Yeah, that's fine. You can use this browser program.
Tried that before and it doesn't work. Okay, and what is it called?
JS lint. LINT. Yeah.
Lint?
Okay.
In here?
Paste. And let's see if we get some errors. There you go. So the problem with this tool is it has a lot of extra errors that are not warning to. See if we can find something useful.
So
Here.
it says that I have a extra space.
Yeah, so these are you can find those.
Oh, okay.
So just okay, scroll down. This all seems check available copies. Did you spell the name of the function correct when you called it?
Check available copies. Check available copies.
The online 24 check available copies is a method, so you have to use the parents.
Oh,
So maybe that's the problem.
maybe.
Oh, yeah, that is, that's it.
Yeah, I'll try that.
No.
You have a question too? Okay, so let's take a look at a couple more and then we. What is that? Sometimes with JSON column you can walk because I think I talked about JSON is a very strict column. So there is because yeah, it's not. So I think
Filing space.
for now. So sometimes you need to look at those errors, but for now.
No, stop.
Oh,
Stop track.
I had so much faith.
So make sure we get this
Brian, it looks good. The only weird thing. It looks like it's a property.
You want to check on that, I can help.
So,
Yeah.
no errors. Is your book object in the right place? The folder?
But that's what I
Create any errors?
oh, it's not. No man. Thanks, you guys.
No.
So I want to start very soon so we can get our last example. Okay?
I could have you Oh man, that's the problem. Thank you. Man, okay, I gotta update this. I gotta go.
Is there one there?
Alright, where'd you go?
What?
So you guys work almost there.
6:27 we start.
So like, for instance, like this layout here, so that's.
We run that, yeah. Do it. See if we can make it. No, we gotta go. This might be what's allowed.
Thanks for your off.
Oh,
Yeah.
So we need to, if everyone is back, as it looks like you are, we need to move on so I can show you the constructor, which is your homework. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to use, I'm sorry?
You're recording, so I can.
Are we still recording? It appears that we are, that I am. Go to the HTML and we're going to use the same HTML more or less. So please copy the HTML from this book object, and then we're going to start a new file and save as book object const for constructor dash template, or you can name it whatever you want as long as you know what it is. And then we can paste the HTML and therefore save a little bit of time. But we need to make a couple changes to the HTML. The changes are going to be, we're going to actually make the first paragraph ID to book 1, and the second paragraph to book 2. And now we're going to see how we can combine all the properties inside the JavaScript and then put them into one paragraph. So we actually don't need the third paragraph here, so I'll delete that. So the HTML will just have paragraph 1 with ID of book 1 and paragraph 2 with ID of book 2, right? And we're going to put the script inside this file. So go ahead and go in the script. And this is going to be create objects, constructor, template. And it's a template because we can crank out multiple objects from the same template. So that's actually more powerful than the previous example. So again, creating an object, but it's going to be a template of an object, and then we can fill in the specifics for multiple objects. So function book. So this is a special kind of function. This is going to be actually what we call the constructor. So function book, and then we're going to pass it the title, the author, and the checked out. So those are the same properties, and the available copies. We're basically passing them as the arguments of a, what is this here? Is the arguments of a function called book. And then the scope of our constructor is going to be open curly brace, and then close the curly brace. And now inside, we're going to essentially set the properties through the arguments that come in from the constructor. And this is going to look the following way. This dot title. So this is the property. If it has the this dot, that means that this title belongs to the object, right? As we learned. And then this is going to equal to title. And then this might look confusing, but what we're doing is we're going to take in a value here, and then we're going to set our property, okay? So this title is referring to the argument. This dot title is actually referring to the property. Does this make sense? We are going to be giving the name of the book as an argument to our object constructor. And then we're going to set the property to as an argument. Now, we don't actually have to name these the same. It just kind of makes sense to do so. This could be made title arg, and then I could say title arg here. Please bear with me, and I think when we create the objects, it's going to make more sense. So the next one is going to be this dot author is equal to author. And we also have, so we have 4 arguments we are passing in, and that's what we're going to set here. This dot checked out is going to equal to checked out. And this dot available copies is going to equal to available copies. Now, even though you might not understand exactly what's going on yet, you might at least appreciate this is more generic. It's more versatile because I'm not just giving it the name of the book here. There is no specific book yet, so it's all just like a template we're creating, right? And then finally, we're going to say this dot check available copies, which is our function, is equal to a function and we're going to open the function, close the function, and don't forget the semicolon here. And from inside the function, curly braces, we're going to return this dot available copies minus this dot checked out. And this will give us, again, what is currently in stock. All right, so I hope that the next 2 lines are going to help clear this up. Just make sure you have your curly braces closed. All right, now we're going to create instances of books by using this constructor template. And this is what this looks like. Var book1 is going to equal to new book. So when we use the new keyword, we create a new instance of the object. And now we're going to pass here the concrete title, author, and so on. So I'm just going to say ABC to save time for the name of the book, okay? And then the name of the author, we set Agatha Christie, separated by comma. And then the checked out, the next argument we need to pass in is the checked out. So let's say we have 10 copies checked out. And we have 15 copies available.
Now you use 2 different kinds of quotes, right? So I guess is that you were saying it doesn't really matter, right?
As long as they're consistent. I mean, I guess I'd like to make them consistent here as well, but that should not be a problem. And then I can create as many instances of books now from this template as I want. So for now, I'm just going to create one more to illustrate the point. I can have a second object, book2, which is going to equal to a new book. And the second book is going to have its own unique title. Let's say XYZ. Its own unique author. I know. Roger Penrose. And then let's say that we have 15 copies in the store, in the book, in the library, and there are 15 available, which means that currently we are at 0 available copies, right? And now I can keep on going. I'm going to stop here after 2. But the point is that with this constructed template, we can create an entire inventory with hundreds of books, right? So did this help a little bit by giving the specific values here, or is still confusing? Yeah. So we're using a template. You can think about it like a blueprint for a house, or I guess I often give the example, if you use Microsoft Word template for a resume, is the same template is going to always ask you to put in your name, like your professional experience, your education. But then Veronica is going to make one instance of a resume which is specific for her, even though she's following the template. And then Marcus is going to make another one which is specific to him, right? So that's the idea with objects. They still follow the same structure, but they are unique based on the properties that we associate with them. All right. And so now we have the job of displaying our objects in the HTML. But basically, this is the heart of it. You create a template, you design your object by calling it, it's a constructor function, so you're going to give it a name, maybe it's a car or a cat. And then you're going to say my cat is going to get a name, an age, and let's say a name and an age and a color. And then inside the constructor, you say this dot name is equal to name. And then after that, you can create as many instances of your object as you want with the unique properties. So that's the idea.
So like a cat, you're gonna need to like return this, or like, you're gonna do like a calculation like that.
You will not be able to do. So probably for most of the methods you're using in your objects, all you have to do is maybe just document type and just print something so that say I am in the sleep, this is the sleep method. So just print out something.
Return,
Yeah, return or not even return, but just print. Just document type.
document right, and then parentheses, and then whatever.
Right, just like a word, so that you know where you are.
Okay.
Okay, so if we have 10 more minutes, I don't know if we can finish this, but let's see if we can at least get one of these books displayed on the HTML page. So we're going to create a variable called book1info. And we're going to combine all the information and all the properties of our book one in one variable and then put this in the HTML. So we're going to say book1info is equal to book1.title. And now this is going to know that book one's title is ABC, right? Plus, we have to have some spaces here. So I'm not going to format it very neatly just so we can move along. Plus, book1.author, right? Plus, space. Plus, book1.check available copies, and don't forget the parentheses. And now I'm going to say variable EL book1 is equal to document. One of the reasons I'm probably typing faster than you is because I'm always using the autocomplete. I don't really type all of it, so we should do the same and also prevent you from making errors. So document.getElement by ID of book1. And let's see here. And so next we have book1, sorry, dot text content is equal to, and I'm going to put this variable I created up here. It's like the message from our previous examples, book1info. And let me see if this worked. I was going very fast, so let's see if this works. Right, okay, so actually it works. And as you can see, it's displaying the information about the first object we created, right? All right. And then we can do the same for the second one. But finish this and then printing the second book information, it will be the same process, right? So see if you can get this working. We have 10 minutes. So we printed it twice.
It's like on YouTube.
So when Simon says display keys to instances of the object, so in our context here, the two instances are group 1 and group 2. So that's called an instance. It's the specific instance of the object. So if I get 10 books, I'll get 10 instances of the same book. I don't know how to say this. So not an instance is the specific object.
Oh,
It has specific properties associated with it that are unique to this object. All right, I'll quickly add the second one so we can print it as well. Two. All right, so see if you can figure out, you can add the second, print out the information about the second book as well, or display I should say. And are we okay with the available copies being 0? Is this fine? Yeah, it is fine because I set my properties to be 15 and 15, right? So they're the same number. But if I change it, that would be different. So if I made it 15 and 37, this should be different. All right, see if you can. Add the second one, or at least the first one. And maybe next time we can discuss further, but we still have 7 minutes, so if you have questions, we can certainly answer them.
I'm returning not a number again, and I'm like, I checked the console and it's